Hi, I'm Nicole Goldin. I am the director of the Youth Prosperity and Security Program here at CSIS in partnership with IYF. And I'm thrilled to be joined today for a conversation with Zeenat Rahman, who is Secretary Kerry's Special Advisor on Youth Issues. So welcome, Zeenat. Thanks for joining me today.
It's wonderful to be here.
It's great to see you again as a former colleague at the U.S. Agency for International Development. And now you're over at the State Department. And talk to us a little bit about what your mandate is in the Office of Global Youth Issues.
Sure. The Office of Global Youth Issues is, a reaction to the demographic and economic realities that face all of us around the world. That youth are a burgeoning population, particularly in the developing world, and they're going to play a prominent role in shaping our 21st century world. We think they're going to be some of the key drivers to some of the global issues that we all face. And so my office, the Office of Global Youth Issues, is leading the State Department's efforts to execute the vision of Secretary Kerry to meet the challenge and the opportunity of the aspirations of young people all around the world. And I think, some of the issues that young people are facing are the same ones that we're all thinking about: the global challenge of climate change or economic opportunity, ensuring inclusive political and civic participation. And so we're leveraging our convening power as the Department of State to be a hub between the policy and the programs that exist that affect young people, and then looking at solutions that are based on collaborations and partnerships and a multi-stakeholder approach to addressing some of these issues.
That's great. It's such an important office, and you've been in the office now about 6 months, I believe.
Yeah, a little bit over, yeah.
Yeah, so talk to us about what's important to you about youth issues, and you talked about the bigger picture.
Yeah.
How do you see it playing out? You've been traveling around the world, you've been meeting with a lot of young people. How do you see that playing out?
Thank you for that question. I think about this a lot, actually, as I travel from region to region and have the pleasure to serve the U.S. government by meeting young people. I think for me, it's an issue that I'm passionate about, something that I did from my time in Chicago, working at an NGO called the Interfaith Youth Corps, and so to be able to apply some of the lessons that I've learned about how we can stand by young people. Yeah. And so for us, this isn't about training young people, as puppets or having them do or say, something on behalf of the U.S. government. It's actually, I fully believe in the potential of young people, and you see those changes happening and how their participation in things accelerate change. They bring in excitement and energy, and I see this over and over, no matter where I am, in literally every corner of the world, I will meet young people who leave me, very, I think, excited about the opportunity and we have as we see this generation mature. And I think in many cases they don't have the same, hang-ups that their, previous generations did, whether their parents or their grandparents. So I think, we've thought a lot about these intractable issues. I actually feel very optimistic as I meet young people around the world about their ability to solve this. And so I think partly I see my mandate as, how do we help them and get out of their way as well.
Tell me a little bit more about that opportunity and how you see Secretary Kerry coming in into the Department of State and taking youth issues forward in the next iteration, if you will, of the Global Youth Issues Office and taking that opportunistic look at young people.
Yeah, I think Secretary Kerry has highlighted youth as central to establishing stable and secure societies. And especially considering the demographics, and I know that that's something through your work at CSIS that you're doing a lot of. I think it's really important to take the Secretary's vision to bring young people into the foreign policy process and highlight them as a global driving force in the economic, political, and social arenas. We really think through active participation and problem solving, young people will develop the skills they need to go from citizens to global leaders. And this is really important. We don't want to solve problems for the next generation. We want to do it with the next generation. And I think there's no, better kind of spokesperson for how important this is from the U.S. government's perspective than the president. And a couple of weeks ago, he was, in the Middle East and Israel, and he gave a landmark speech on the Middle East peace process, and it was directed to young people, and it was actually a call to action. It was a direct call for young people to be at the forefront of the change, at the forefront of not only dealing with this issue that's such a pressing challenge for us, but also looking at all the issues facing the region, that it's incumbent on them to take action and not to sit around and wait for their leaders to do so. So I think, that to me shows from the very top levels the belief that we have in investing in incorporating youth voices and young people into some of these major policy challenges that we're dealing with around the world.
It's really exciting. Can you talk to me a little bit more about the youth councils as a vehicle that you've been really, thank you for your leadership on youth councils, and would love to hear a little bit more, for you to talk to us a little bit more about what the youth councils are and how those are a platform for youth voice.
Yeah, no, I would love to. The evolution of the office has been, manyfold and across many priorities. But one that we've spent a lot of time on, as we set up the office, was how do we improve our engagement and and two-way engagement with young people around the world. And so one mechanism is what you mentioned, which is youth councils. And they are a cross-sector of society, young people from all different places and parts of society that our embassies lead on and our consulates as well, that the ambassador convenes to get honest feedback on our programs and our policies, to talk about issues of concern that young people face locally. And so many times that local is definitely connected to the global things that you and I talk about here in DC. So for example, now we're seeing action, through and with and between our youth councils. So our youth council, for example, in Latvia partnered with our youth council in Macedonia, and they're coming up with an online petition system to petition their government to create incentives basically for youth unemployment or youth employment with private sector companies. So it's providing a ground where that conversation can happen. Again, utilizing the perch, the fact that it's a global mandate that we have to connect young people from Kampala to Monterey who are thinking about the same thing. Yeah. And that's a fascinating thing. A lot of these issues are local to the context, but it really serves them to talk to their peers across countries, across states, to realize that other people of their age group are dealing with the same issues.
It's fascinating. Yeah. So we've got youth as partners, and then just picking up on the Latvia example and what you talked about earlier as far as the mandate of the office, and we talked about earlier today, the idea of being multi-sectoral and thinking about broad partnerships in your approach. Talk to me a little bit more about what the partnerships aspect of your work in engaging private sector and different stakeholders, as well as young people, as we just talked about in this process. Yeah.
I mean, I think of all the issues that we're looking at with regard to young people, there's no more important issue than global youth unemployment right now, and the myriad negative ripple effects that's having around the world. On economies and societies. And so I look at it as something that's a supply side issue and a demand side issue. And on the supply side, we are working with young people and for young people to develop skill sets that they can use throughout their life, that's going to make them marketable on the global stage, where there are jobs available. They don't always match, the skill sets that young people have as they leave, let's say even college or vocational school. So strengthening that link a little and making sure that young people have that basic knowledge and skill set. On the demand side, and speaking to your, to your partnership question, the magnitude of this issue is such that it cannot be solved by any one entity alone. And that means that, we from the US government's perspective need to look at it. Other governments need to look at it, but engaging the private sector on the demand side, so that they have needs as well of jobs that are open, that are going unfilled. And so we want to make sure that we are helping to advance that multi-stakeholder approach, where we may not speak the same language, but maybe through meetings and through talking about everything each of us are doing in this, it would have that kind of the ripple effect. One that I'm really excited about is something called the Startup Youth Initiative. And it's something that our office has launched with the private sector to advance youth entrepreneurship in many different regions in the world. We launched it in Dubai in December, and we're going to be in India in a few weeks, meeting young entrepreneurs, doing kind of a boot camp with them, And then, holding them up as role models. So it's both youth empowerment, but also helping them get those skill sets that will make them be able to navigate the world effectively.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Well, thank you, Zeenat. It's
Thank
been
you,
a privilege.
Nicole.
I think one language we both speak is about the power and
That's right.
potential of
Yeah.
young people. So it's been a real pleasure to have you with us for a few minutes to tell us about your work.
so
And
much for
thank you
having
for your leadership. And we'll look forward to speaking again further.
Yes, I look forward to continuing your work.
Fantastic.
Thank
Thank you.